There are some things that always happen in the first month of a new fighting game. It's a lot of excitement, sharing tech, waiting to see what character Takedo picks, the server's not working, and complaining about grapplers on Twitter literally non-stop. If you're old like me, that last point you will have seen happen with every new release. You'll load up your social media of choice, see a clip of some high damage command grab versus a low life character, followed by a bunch of comments immediately saying they're broken. To be fair, there is evidence that agrees with their point. In that period of time, you'll probably see these characters tearing through brackets, only to further this public discourse. So what's going on month 1 then? Why are grapplers always top tier? When you pick up any character for the first time, you need to figure out what it is that they are trying to do. What is their win condition and how do you achieve it? It's not an easy task. Depending on the matchup you're facing, it could shift massively. If you're playing Kai in Strive or any kind of balanced character in any fighter, you'll need to be able to shift your playstyle accordingly to counter the opponent's approach. Entire moves can be invalidated by the right matchup, and that takes time to overcome. Don't get me wrong, of course, every character has to do this, but early on in a title's lifespan, the clearer defined a character's game plan, the more likely you are playing them like you're supposed to by design. Grapplers are fantastic in this regard. Their game plan is always get a throw or have a throw be big enough of a threat that they get hit by a strike. On top of this, it's often pretty easy to repeat over and over again. I'm speaking very generally here, but loopable pressure is often a key feature of these characters, meaning that once you're in, you stay in and avoid neutral. Unlike a grappler, someone like Akuma or Zato might need specific knockdowns to run their best mix-ups. Even the optimal setups might not be clear until months after a game's public launch. It took a while to make Zato the powerhouse Oki character that we see today, and it makes sense. He's got a lot of tools and a lot of ways to use them. In that first month, while you have all these glass cannon players on their third notebook trying to figure out an even vaguely optimal B&B, a grappler will have a lot of their core gameplay figured out pretty quickly. This ends up leaving us with more time to focus on neutral, defense, and matchups, the bits that often get left unexplored early on. The archetypal high health can also contribute to a more stable tournament experience as well. Getting hit by a gimmick will simply just cost you less, and that is huge up until everyone knows how to beat them. Grapplers also commonly have the best early game gimmicks. I mean, Christ, I made my way into far too many top 8s hitting people with Ladiva's 5U, which is a 31 frame command grab that pretty much insta-gibs you. They will also often force you to play your character in a way that's not in line with your standard game plan. Although this has changed over the years, a lot of grapplers have good defensive options, quick command throws to interrupt strings, insane damage, moves that just one-to-one beat fireballs, and even the anti-airs are commonly stronger than the rest of the cast. As a response, when fighting them, you'll be required to slow your pace, react, and take less risks. All skills that take time to develop into muscle memory and will come with a lot of what feels like stolen rounds. Ultimately, learning a character is one thing, and learning how to fight an extreme matchup like a zoner or a grappler is another hard thing. One great example of how disruptive a grappler can be in a new meta is found in the arcade edition of Street Fighter 4. Yun and Yang were deemed the strongest characters with good reason. They were both purposely overtuned by the developers. However, Zangief at the time was considered their counterpick, easily countering a lot of their dive kick play with Lariat and rushing them down just like the rest of the cast. He produced good tournament results, but in the long run we realised that he wasn't even that good of a counterpick. He instead stopped their basic game plan, and early on in this version, that alone was enough. It is a foregone conclusion that someone with a command grab will sit within the top tier at the beginning of a game's life. But there is another thing you can be certain of. They're probably not gonna stay there. Once the shock value of a 50-50 mix up and high damage wears off, players will start actually labbing out how to fight them. It's normally pretty soon after that we begin to see how many risks they actually need to take. They are, in their nature, volatile characters that need an opening to win. Depending on the game, fishing for these opportunities can be a really big gamble that requires an immense degree of adaptation and mind games. They might even have huge buttons everyone keeps getting caught by, but slowly we start to realise how laggy they are, or how easy it is to position yourself around them due to the slow movement speeds. Suddenly you'll find yourself getting punished more, and that high health advantage starts to fade away. Not only this, but a lot of what people will call 50-50 mix-ups, like your standard strike throw, doesn't actually have these odds. Universal tech known about for decades like fuzzy jump will inevitably get implemented by top players. With this, even when you do get in as a grappler, those reads just got a lot harder and a lot more complex than they were. It's not to say these characters are default bad. Some are amazing, top tier characters, and some of the people who pick them are even better. What I want to show, however, is that first month of a game's life is close to meaningless when it comes to discussions around meta. As previously mentioned, grapplers are an extreme archetype. They are going to have bad matchups and probably some really good ones too. It's just the nature of the beast, and that's why people have such strong feelings towards them. They might be frustrating to fight, even I can't deny that, but before we start lobbying to have them nerfed into the dirt day one, we need to reflect on the idea that they might not be broken, we might just be bad.